Hello everyone and welcome back to the Cyclocross Social podcast. It is the most wonderful time of the year. The highlight of the cyclocross season is coming. Really the heavy backloaded part, the December month, and then of course the championships in January. The big three, if we should call them that, let's just call them by their names. Wout van Aert, Tom Pidcock and Mathieu van der Poel are about to make their season starts, Wout van Aert being the first in Essen this weekend, and Issam and I are just going to take a short look ahead at that and just in general their programs, their season plannings and everything, just give you a short update on that. Issam, thank you for making the time to record late at night.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you for having me.
So, as said, Essen this weekend will be the first race of the season for Wout van Aert since he's the first to start the season. Let's start by taking a look at his schedule this year. Just like 2 seasons ago, he is not planning to do the World Championships. He will do a number of races starting in Essen. Then he will do another Exactcross Mol. Then he will do the World Cups of Antwerp and Gavere. Then he will race the Super Prestige in Zolder, World Cup Hulst, X2O Trophy in Baal and Kokzijde, World Cup in Zonhoven and the World Cup in Benidorm are both provisionally on his program. Thoughts on that, Issam? No World Championships. He's targeting the Giro this year. A bit of a controversy there if he's going to do just stages or the GC or whatever their tactic is there. But regardless of that, your thoughts?
In a way, it's a packed season. Obviously, we still don't know if Zonhoven and Benidorm will go ahead. But it's a solid calendar. And to be honest, a calendar where, or a program at least, where you could have a World Championships on top of that as well, I feel. But the decision there is made by Jumbo, as you said, they to maybe have a very good Giro d'Italia, and they also have the classics as their most important goal of the season, maybe. Yeah, it's for them. It's obviously a decision that we see season after season that cyclocross becomes less and less important for Jumbo. Van Aert is probably, I feel, still someone that loves to do cyclocross, that still loves to participate in these races. Obviously, there is some financial gains in it as well, but I think for him, it's definitely going to be somewhat of a relief to enter these races without having the question of, are you prepared for the battle? Do you think that you are able to win the World Championships? You can do those races without a lot of pressure. Obviously, the Belgian fans will still put a lot of pressure on it because he needs to win those races. But I think from his side, I can understand that he doesn't want to do the Worlds because it's just mentally you have to put a lot of effort in that, and it takes a lot of energy away from you. You have to do a lot of interviews and the speculation. I kind of understand that he wants to skip the World Championships this year, and overall I think that it is a solid race schedule and something that we see at the big three, kind of the pattern that we are watching right now. The guy's kind of leaving it very late. Van Aert is going to be the first starting, but then from there it's a big gap to Mol, and then from there he's going to try and take as many races as he can in a way.
Especially that mental part you mentioned seems to be the motivation for skipping Worlds. He said that last year he thought it was too difficult mentally to recharge after Worlds in Hogeheide for the classic season. Physically, there will always be arguments as to why a better preparation for the road season is without cyclocross, but Van der Poel showed that you can have a great classic campaign and become world champion cyclocross through schedule of 2 months of racing. And the key in that is that at this moment in time, Van Aert and Van der Poel, and also to an extent Pidcock, especially in the season he became world champion, they race cyclocross in function of the road season. When they peak for the World Championships, they don't peak in the same way they peak for Paris-Roubaix. They don't reach their maximum form for the Cyclocross World Championships anymore. We had those times before in the Bogense World Championships or in the Valkenburg World Championships, but now they do endurance trainings around the race. They might ride 3 hours in the morning and then finish it off with a cyclocross race. Pidcock at some point did 4.5 hours on the road before one of his races, then raced and did 1.5 hours on the road after that. If you train like that, you're kind of building to a road season and just using the cyclocross races as an intensive effort. intensive activity, a workout. So I do think he could do it, but I can also now, especially this season, see why he doesn't do it, because that Giro, it means that the entire season becomes a bit more packed at the front. After the Classics, it's a relatively short rebuild towards the Giro. It's tough decisions that need to be made. Season planning, will come to Van der Poel in a bit. For him, the puzzle is even more complicated. But Issam, what do you think? Do you rule out the possibility of him still adding the World Championships if he is winning almost every race he's doing?
Kind of hard to say because we don't know what the future will hold, but I think that eventually he will do some World Championships. But I think just right now he's very ambitious. He still feels that there are some races that he needs to add on his palmarès, and who are we to blame him for that? I think that, I believe that he has the capability to win some of the races that he's eyeing on. I think others are maybe going to be a little bit more difficult. I think a Grand Tour, for example, is a very, very difficult task to fulfill. But I think that overall it's definitely within the possibilities that at a certain point he will maybe focus a little bit more on cyclocross, or at least try and be as good as possible with the combination, to be as good as possible in the World Championships, and to try and eye for a World Championship, because I think it's still, just the jersey and the whole ambition and the love for the sport that which he truly started with. He didn't really think about becoming a road rider. He was very focused on becoming a cyclocross rider, and then at a certain point that kind of changed into this road cyclocross combi, and now in trying to become more this road rider. I think it's possible, but it's just something that it needs to fit in, and it's it also needs some support from the team itself, because I think that the team wants to win certain classics and races with him, and maybe from there they can try and see if they can put in World Championships in the program.
Yeah, Jumbo is definitely not a team that really likes their riders doing cyclocross, and sure, they let Van Empel do it and Vos, but those are their superstars. They have to give some and take some with them. For the other riders, they are not so lenient on that. I mean, Thibaut Grosso was contacted by that team before he eventually signed with Maytech, and the deal was, well, if you want to join us, you have to drop cyclocross, and Del Grosso refused that. So that tells you enough about the state of that team. At the same time, there's just a different situation for Van Aert compared to Van der Poel. Van Aert has not won the Tour of Flanders. He has not won Paris-Roubaix. He won Milan-San Remo in COVID times, and since then, I'm not saying he's had a bad run, but he's still missing that big win. So I feel like Van Aert is trying everything to kind of tweak and find that extra percent he thinks he needs to find somewhere in order to win those races, because he's always there, but he's always just short, and he will still have a great career, and he has a number of big wins. His palmarès is already pretty impressive, but he's looking for that big win, and you say the pressure in the Belgian media. Belgian media is probably the most relentless cycling press in the world, although the French also certainly have a reputation for themselves. But he avoids that pressure for the cyclocross worlds, but at the same time, as well as I do that once we come to the Tour of Flanders, the headlines are going to be, Van Aert needs to win. He skipped cyclocross world championships for this. And if he just won a couple of races, like in the 2021-2022 season, the headlines will be, well, he gave up a free world title in order to do well here, and he didn't. That's just the way the Belgian media works. The pressure is going to be higher than ever, but I can still see him trying to scrape improvements. Just a short preview for Essen. We don't have a start list, but that should be an easy win, right? We shouldn't put too much attention into it. Oh, well, I'm not feeling great. I haven't done too much cross-training. Most riders aren't going to be there. Essen puts in extra financial effort to get him. It's one of his personal... He's involved in Helen Vastgoed, and that also sponsors that race. It should just be an easy walkover for him, and you will get to witness it, Issam.
Yeah, hopefully it's going to be an easy win for him. But the pressure, in a way, the Belgian media is sometimes very harsh on the palmarès and the results that a rider achieves, especially if you are lacking a Tour of Flanders win, and especially with the profile of Van Aert, who he's seen as a real Flandrien in a way, but you cannot be called that if you didn't win the Tour of Flanders. So it's something that is lacking, and it's something that he's eyeing. Definitely think that he also looks at the Paris-Roubaix, that also he still needs to be added on the list. And I think that in my opinion, with his profile, that is the race I see him win more likely than a Tour of Flanders. Both are possible. Both are within his reach, I think. But yeah, it's going to be difficult. And, I hope that that happens as soon as possible, because that probably could be the push for him to kind of, bring himself a little bit more back to the cyclocross. But yeah, there is also his ambitions maybe with Grand Tours and all that. So it's going to be a difficult story, but I still kind of like it that he's doing, his couple of races in cyclocross, and, he brings a lot of eyes to the sport, and, he's a big name that you want to have and that you want to see in those races. And I think that, that alone is already a big bonus for cyclocross, and it's great to see that he is already back in Essen, and I can't wait to see how he can perform there.
Then on to the next superstar, Tom Pidcock. He is starting a week later in Herentals, starting with a double weekend, also racing in Namur. He is currently in Mallorca on the Ineos training camp. Van Aert will go to the Jumbo training camp after Essen and then not race Herentals in Namur. First clash with also Mathieu van der Poel will be in Antwerp. Then Pidcock goes to Gavere, Diegem, Hulst, Kokzijde, Gullegem, Zonhoven and Benidorm to finish off his season. I would say it's pretty similar to what he did last year, except that now he skips the month of November. He starts a month later, and then finishes at the same time in Benidorm. Also for Pidcock, I think it makes sense to an extent that he decides to not race Worlds. For Pidcock, I really think whereas for Van Aert, I still have a small hope that he might race Tabor. For Pidcock, I really don't have that. I think this is it. He's going to do this. I don't really know what his level is going to be like. I hope we can see a continuation of what we saw last year, where he was able to battle with Van Aert and Van der Poel in Diegem, in Gavere. If we see that a couple of times this season, I will already be very happy, because those races were great. Loenhout, also a great race last season. And I'm still not over that race in Diegem last year. But it would be great to see him do that. For me, it makes sense, the schedules he's doing. Herentals and Namur should be good courses for him. We know that he's a slow starter in the season. So by the time we hit Gavere, he should really be able to fight for wins. And again, with his big goal being the Paris Olympics, and that on the mountain bike, also combining it with the road race there, doing the Tour before such a packed schedule, it makes sense that he's making choices, and he's also making choices in the preseason, because this year he's not doing the Flemish Classics, he's focusing on the Ardennes.
I'm gonna be honest, the understanding that I have for Van Aert not starting the Worlds, not participating in it, and as you said, there is that slight chance obviously that he would, but with Pidcock I don't see the real benefit out of it. I think that we have seen in the past already that the media attention for him is less. The pressure for him is also going to be less. He already has a world title. But, I heard the story that he's going to do a mountain bike race the same day of Tabor. I don't know if that is true, but it's a bit of a shame, obviously, because I think that he's definitely a guy that could bring up a fight, and on a good day can definitely challenge the likes of Van der Poel and Van Aert. And he's also a very likable guy. He's a guy that brings, a different kind of entourage, more international. And that's always great to see. And, we have to enjoy him for the races that he has on his program, which I think are 10. It's great to see him race. I think that is very nice to see him do Herentals and Namen or Namur. I think that is for, if the weather is actually a bit more raining, I think it's definitely going to be courses where we could see a Pidcock in his element. That is definitely going to be something I look forward to, and hopefully, in the next couple of years, this dynamic would change kind of. But it's a special year, next year with the Olympics, as you said, and those kind of things. Maybe you want to take less risks and maybe have less peaks in your year and season. So I think that from that point of view, it's obviously understanding, but yeah, maybe I'm just a bit disappointed in the fact that he's not participating in the Worlds, and it's a bit of a shame, but definitely understandable in that regard.
Well, my cross heart bleeds every time Pidcock, Van Aert, Van der Poel announce that they're not doing the World Championships and that they cut their season smaller and smaller. I want to see them race as much as possible. Heck, if I had a choice, I would have all of them start their season this year in Beringen, then go to Waterloo, race everything. But at the same time, it's not the reality that we are in. We can't expect them to do it. These are all riders who have a lot of talent on the road. They can't do a full cross season and a full road season. It's just impossible. Yes, Pidcock is doing a mountain bike race on the day of Cyclocross Worlds, but that story is overblown in the media. Yes, he does that race, but it's a race super close to Andorra or the Ineos training camp, either of the two, and it's going to be an equipment test. They're going to test their bikes and everything, so they have a bit more time to work on it. That would be the only race Pidcock does on the mountain bike before, I think, mid-May. And if you have major fixes to your bike or whatever you're using in mid-May, you don't have much time to fix that, let alone test it before the Paris Olympics. So that's the story behind that mountain bike race. And I expect to see a Pidcock who is just resting. He's going to race because he loves racing. I kind of doubt that we will see what we saw last year of him. I think he will be on a lower form curve. He's just going to race for the fun. Going to race, well, maybe for the money, although he doesn't earn as much start money as Van Aert and Van der Poel. But he's just going to have a fun time out there. He really loves doing cross. He loves doing mountain bike. That's why he does this. They're all fueled by their passion. But I think he's just laying it low this winter, resting. And he will need that rest because that summer, it's just going to be packed. He's going to try that double at the Olympics, mountain bike and road race. He's going to probably target one of the World Championships later in the season. He's going to do the Tour. He's going to try and win Liège this year after ending on the podium. You need to make choices, and that's why, for me, it makes somewhat sense that he skips Worlds. Last but definitely not least, the reigning cyclocross world champion Mathieu van der Poel. He will be defending his title in Tabor at the end of the season. He starts his quest for that as the last rider of the big three. He starts in Mol, then races Antwerp, Gavere, Diegem, Loenhout, Hulst, Baal, Kokzijde, Zonhoven, Benidorm, Hamme, Hogerheide and Tabor as final race. It is a packed schedule for him. He is doing a ton of races in the Christmas period, and I would expect this to be the same as last year. Issam, he uses these races to ride himself into form. He said he's only done 2 cyclocross training sessions and he's doing a third, but mainly just focusing on building that endurance base, which kind of fits in with his idea of just targeting the road season throughout the cyclocross season and not really being at 100% for the World Championships in Tabor, even though he himself says he needs to be at 100% to claim that world title there.
Well, I think that Van der Poel is going to try and get a level at the World Championships that will be enough to defend his title. I think that it's most likely the goal. We've seen it already last year that they kind of went for a similar approach where they, use the races to be as good as possible for the main goal, and the main goal is obviously to become again a world champion and to defend that title. And I think that, if we end up in a scenario where Van Aert is not racing and Pidcock is not racing, which at the moment is definitely the way it seems to be going, then I think that he still needs to be at a very good level. I don't think that he will be on the peak level that he will be reaching in the Spring Classics, because that is also something that is in a way kind of unrealistic. You cannot have that many peaks in a season. You have to be very thoughtful of what you're going to do in your season and how you're going to plan out your season. And I think that you definitely don't have to take the win for granted, considering that you have to face opposition that you probably think you can beat. You definitely don't have to underestimate the opposition. A lot can happen in such a race, so you just need to try and be at your best possible And I think that for Van der Poel is going to be what he has to try to do. And he did that very well last year, and I think that he can do that again this year.
Well, especially without Van Aert and Pidcock there, I think it should be clear that he's going to be the top favorite there. I don't really think Iserbyt or Van der Haar or Nijs or anyone has the level to reach even the foot of Mathieu van der Poel there. But that's being very premature. We'll leave that for our World Championships previews. But yeah, he should definitely be the outright favorite there. And it's good to see him defend his title. As you say, I think it's a very, very packed schedule. He's doing almost the entire Christmas marathon. Between Mol and Zonhoven, he's only skipping Gullegem and Zolder. That's going to be packed. And yeah, I don't think we can say that much more about his schedule for the cross season, but he too has a very busy summer. And I mean, I would have also understood it if he had said, I'm not doing Tabor this year, I'm gonna call it a day after Benidorm. Because if you look where his ambitions are, it's an Olympic year. He's obviously made different choices. He says the record of 7 world titles held by Erik de Vlaming is a motivation for him. He wants to get that record. That's why he's racing Worlds. It's a personal choice, but he's planning into the classic season again, the Flemish Classics. Then he wants to do something in the summer. He hasn't made his decision. Is it going to be the Tour and the road race? Is it going to be the mountain bike race at the Olympics? Is he going to do Liège? We don't really know. That road season hasn't been planned. Neither has the summer program. But he too has choices to be made this summer, and those aren't easy ones either.
No, absolutely not. And it's it's kind of his a luxury problem in a way, yeah, because he definitely has a very good shot in winning a stage in the Tour de France. I think that the Olympic Games on the road is definitely something that he could do well at as well. And the same goes for the mountain bike. If he kind of finds a good form and has a good feeling on the mountain bike, he's also a danger there and could play a role for the medal. So I think that it's a problem that a puzzle that they have to solve in a way, and they just have to try and get the pieces together and see what they come up with in terms of what they wanna do. Of course, at the moment it seems that he's eyeing both the Olympic road event and the mountain bike event. I think that it might go in a way where he might be eyeing more for the road event than the mountain bike event, especially considering that the mountain bike is definitely something that he loves to do, and he's definitely going to put the effort in and the preparation into decent chances in doing well in the mountain bike event. But it's just that we can see that on the road it just goes a little better, I would say, and I feel that his chances are a little higher on the road than on the mountain bike, especially if you think that if a good Pidcock, and Pidcock is going to try and do anything to be very good in Paris, if he will arrive there, it's going to be a very difficult task to do something and win the gold medal. But the race has to be ridden. A lot of things can happen in such a race. It's I can remember Tokyo, that was one lap and it was already over. So it's something that you have to keep in mind, and it's going to be interesting to see. Maybe we're going to see some signs already this, in the whole continuation of this season, that maybe somewhere we can kind of guess already that the road is going to get a preference over the mountain bike, or that the mountain bike is still definitely something they really want to try. And
I'm just going to stop you there for a bit, because to add some context, Thijs Zonneveld, Dutch journalist for AD, a Dutch daily newspaper, I think it's the second largest newspaper of the country. He had an interview, just like pretty much every big media outlet, Van der Poel today in Spain, where he spoke to the press. He said that, reading between the lines, he expects, based on his information, everything, that the decision is going to be no Tour de France, combining mountain bike and road race, and then do the Vuelta potentially as preparation for the Road World Championships, or just the Vuelta to win a bunch of stages in the postseason.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think that the Vuelta was something that wasn't really mentioned. I think that kind of says it all. So you have to drop something in that summer, and I think that could definitely be a good choice to drop the Tour de France. it's a crazy grand tour, and there is a lot of pressure there. The whole media there, it's a spectacle, a circus, and the best riders try to win a stage there. So it's definitely a hectic race, and there's a lot of pressure there. And to also add that next to a road Olympic event and the mountain bike, it's just, I think, maybe a little too much. So it opens a gap, and that is going to make a combi of road and mountain bike probably more likely, and also a little easier to handle. So that will be definitely interesting to see how he will cope with that, and how the Vuelta will go, how they will enter the Vuelta, and how that will correlate to a potential World Championships, because we kind of know the profile, but we don't know how tough that race will be.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I can definitely still see things change throughout the season, or probably before the season in their planning. And I don't know, he says he doesn't want to abandon the tour, but at the same time I'm thinking, there's cases to make for both. I can see why you would want to fully prep that mountain bike, and I mean 1 week of tour won't mean that much to you, but if you really want to build that endurance base, like, there's nothing that compares to doing the tour. If you can do it like this year on a relatively low intensity couple of big stages, but relatively easy on the others, that's such an endurance base. No training camp, no matter how much you train, it can never compare to the amount of distance and volume you do up in the Tour de France. But we will see. I think it would be an interesting choice if he decides to race Liège-Bastogne-Liège after the Flemish Classics. I probably would advise against that. Let me think. I would probably advise against that, because he needs to do a number of mountain bike races, and I would suggest he starts at the European Championships, and then after that races through a couple of World Cups before the Tour, and then does some specific training, either or the Tour or something there. But he will definitely need to get a number of mountain bike races under his belt. But I agree with your assessment. I think his chances of winning the Olympic road race gold are going to be higher than winning the mountain bike gold. And I don't only say that because of Pidcock. I mean, it will be interesting to see in what form Pidcock comes. He kind of wants to do GC in the Tour, and I don't really see how GC in the Tour, 3 weeks of racing, will go well with hopping on the mountain bike literally a week after the Tour ends. That's a tough switch to make, but I guess that's also a puzzle at Ineos they are still working on. They will definitely be having some discussions at that training camp in Mallorca about that right now. But yeah, it's tough choices, and I mean, this year it's just extra tough choices for the riders doing mountain bike because of the Olympic year. It's tough, and I mean, I guess in a similar way, it's a decision that Van Aert makes, because the Giro doing that, I can't see that be unrelated to the Olympics. I think Van Aert wants that Olympic road title, wants to do the Giro, and then rebuild himself for the Olympics, and it just makes this season atypical. And I guess next year we'll be hoping for that they do more cross races again, but if they will, that's obviously a different question. It should be some interesting times up ahead, Issam, and I just want to end with the notion that this isn't the first time cyclocross is in a situation where there's talks about road combi killing the sport. Maybe it's not as extreme now, because besides the 3 top guns we discussed in this episode, we have Tim Merlier, Gianni Vermeers, Quinten Hermans, and Timo Kielich, all quality riders that are doing a Christmas cyclocross campaign aiming for top 10s, a medal potentially at the Belgian Championships. They've all said, well, if everything goes super well, we might continue our season and race worlds, especially with the absence of Van Aert and Pidcock. But yeah, it should be interesting. And to just elaborate a little bit on my point before, this week I looked up some old articles around the 2014 World Championships. Those times we had Bohm and Stibar both switching to the road. Nijs was on the verge of retirement. Albert was forced to retire due to heart issues. Wellens was not his old self. Vervecke was at the end of his career. And then the articles were, well, Nijs is stopping the growth of the sport. This comes from the Dutch daily newspaper Trouw. They also said that with Skibar racing and getting a couple of podiums, he showed that the level of cyclocross was low, but at the same time he was embarrassing himself and that he would make a fool of himself at the Hogerheide World Championships. He won those World Championships, so they had to wipe out their own headlines and replace them with Skibar embarrasses full-time cross riders. So I'm just saying it's not a new situation and cyclocross will survive. But Issam, thank you for being here. Thanks for the discussion. Interesting times up ahead.
Yeah, looking forward to it, and thank you for having me.
We will be back this weekend with a podcast about the World Cup in Val d'Isle. We'll also discuss the Exactcross in Essen in that same podcast. No separate podcast for that because Issam is in Essen. I am in Val d'Isle. Doesn't really go together to record a podcast after Essen for that, but definitely after Val d'Isle we'll take plenty of time to discuss everything. Thanks everyone for listening and goodbye.